On this episode of Jeff Kelderman's Garage, we're talking motorcycles. Hey, Jeff Kelderman here. Welcome to my garage. For each episode, we're going to sit down, we're going to grab a hot rod, bike, a race car, and we're going to sit down and talk about how I took this car and how we turned it into what it is today. And the prize in my collection, the original Joe Dirt movie car. So when you got deer tattooed on your ribs and this car comes up for sale at Barrett Jackson, you're going to figure out a way to make it work. And I did. Speaking of American muscle, we've even got Kyle Petty's high school car right here. Hell, even my wife's car's 550 horsepower. We're even going to get out of the garage a little bit. We got a couple special places this thing's going that you're really going to like. You're going to follow me to the racetrack and see how good or maybe not so good a driver I am. You're going to see a lot of Viper action. 6-speed, old school, no traction control. What could go wrong? Man, I've been on two wheels since I was a little kid. Hell, when I was 4 years old, there was an XR50 sitting next to the Christmas tree. I got it all from my dad, who's been on motorcycles as long as I can remember. I was fortunate because we lived out in the country. So out here in Iowa, we had all this timber, all this farmland. You could buzz around in the ditches, dirt roads. I mean, from my XR50 to an XR80 to my KX125 I had in high school. Man, I've been on two wheels as long as I can remember. So I came to high school and I wanted a street bike. And my dad said, there is no way I'm letting you get on two wheels because you've been on dirt. You're an absolute maniac. You're going to go out there and get creamed on the streets. So I had to wait till I got out of high school. Coming back from my first year at Iowa State University, it was 1991, and I started asking around. I kind of wanted an old Harley, panhead, an old shovel. But I could turn a wrench, so I wasn't worried about getting something that needed a little bit of work. Well, being a college kid with absolutely, hardly any money in my name, I was going to have to find an old Harley, something I was going to have to fix up, because my budget wasn't going to let me go buy something I could just take off and ride the same day. I come back from college with less money than I had when I went there, but I did have a job delivering pizzas at Rocky Rococo, so I had a little bit of money, and started asking around town trying to find this old Harley or something I could wrench on, maybe get something for $1,000 to maybe fix it up, get something running. Where I ran across a guy who said, you need to go out and visit a guy out on the north end of town named Jim DeWitt. He's got a 47 Indian he just picked up that he's getting ready to sell. So first thing I say is, an old Indian, what the hell am I going to do with an Indian? I'm looking for a 60s or 70s Harley, something that just needs a little bit of tinkering so I can ride this summer. But went out and visited him, ended up picking up this bike. Now, let me tell you, this bike looked nothing like what it does now. I had the wheels, I had to get them re-chromed. Had the front end, had tanks, the motor was laying there in pieces, so was the transmission. I had rear wheel and basically a headlight, and I had a pair of handlebars. That was all this bike came with. So I got in my truck, which was at the time a 1991 Love diesel long box, slow as a diesel rabbit, but hey, got me before I needed to go. So I went and picked up my Indian project. So I got home and I grabbed a Hemmings magazine. We're talking 91 here. There is no internet. You don't just Google Indian motorcycle parts. I mean, you got to get out the book, old school. Find out, where am I going to get these parts? Because this thing is missing half of the stuff I need. We're going to have to completely rebuild the motor, the transmission. We're going to have to paint the thing. And we're going to have to get new wheels. We're going to have to get a ton of stuff chromed. So I grab my Hemmings, I look down, look through Indian motorcycles, and I find this little square ad that says Kiwi Indian Motorcycles, Riverside, California. 951-780-5400. 30 years later, I still remember the goddamn phone number. So I make a phone call and I talk to a guy named Kiwi Mike. And little did I know Kiwi was going to be one of my lifelong dearest friends. Make a long story short, he sent me a free catalog I thought was cool. From there on out, my goal was I got to get this thing done. I want 1 year to do it. So I went out to my friend Scott's house, and I actually built it out at his shop because he had a little body shop out there. I mean, we sandblasted the frame, we sandblasted all this, ordered our fenders from Kiwi, ordered all the parts to build the motor from Kiwi. We built the motor in Scott's basement. We did all the work in his paint booth. And 1 year to the day, when I bought that thing, I rode it from Scott's house out there into my house in Oskaloosa. And the cool thing is, I've owned this thing for 33 years. And it still runs and drives like it was brand new in 1947. So after getting the 47 Chief done in 1992, I became really good friends also while building this with a guy named Paul George. He died about 5 years after that. He was an older gentleman, had emphysema, but he really became a good friend of mine. And he lived in Des Moines, so every weekend when I was on the way back, I'd come and work on this. On the way back home, I'd stop by Paul. And we would just sit around really and talk about life. He's the one who scored me some cool, original, hard to find parts. But really developed a great relationship with him. In the meantime, after a couple of years, I had that done for a couple of years with my brother. He's 6 years younger than me. He was 16, and Paul had this bike, this little Scout, and it was red at the time, but we sandblasted the fuel tanks. But we ended up buying this little 3050. It's a 1940 Scout, and my brother drove this to high school in 94, 95, and 96. What's crazy, we had a license plate, no tail light, headlight doesn't work, but you know what? This thing's so damn slow, cops just let them ride around town like we own the place. Another cool story about Paul George was he had a shop, pole barn, that was just full of motorcycle parts. When I say full of motorcycle parts, it was insane how much stuff he had. So he had a green MG that he had bought a few years earlier, and he was wanting it red. He hated the green, he wanted it red. So he made a deal. I was gonna paint it red for him, and he let me take it, literally an old shopping cart to his shop, and I pulled down a set of 18-inch wheels. I got a leaf spring front end. I got this rigid frame, and I got the rear wheel, and I got a motor in pieces. So I think I came out pretty good, because he's just a rigid frame now. These days ago, just for the frames, $12,000. So it's crazy the money that these things are bringing now. But back then, you know, we were just friends. He just wanted a red he wanted a red car. I wanted another Indian motorcycle. So Kiwi's been building Indian motorcycle parts for 35 years. And for a few years there, he was building a custom hand-built bikes. Well, a while back, I was fortunate enough to get my hands on this one. So this is basically a 37 vintage leaf spring front end, hardtail frame. Very similar to the 38 that I have in my living room. But this is kind of a custom bobber. So we've got modern 21-inch front wheel. We got performance machine disc brakes on it. You got same motor that's in the one in the house, which is an 84 cubic inch. But what's cool about this, it's got its 4-speed conversion. So this will go 100 damn mile an hour. It's crazy. You got a rigid frame, old Indian, modern disc brakes, modern 4-speed, 12 volt. Tell you what, man, this is so damn much fun, but you got to keep yourself, cautious on this, because you're really riding a bike that is a 1937 Indian, but it handles like a new one. All right, let's go. Go. So one of the cool things about the vintage motorcycle deal is you could go to these motorcycle swap meets, and they have them in different regions of the country. I'm lucky because the biggest one in the country is over in Davenport, which is about 2.5 hours away from my shop. So rewind back to when I got the Indian 1991. I called Kiwi Mike from Riverside, California, and he says, hey, let's get parts going, but come over and meet me. I'll be at the Davenport swap meet, which I never heard of. So it's Labor Day weekend. Every year for probably the next 10, 12 years, my brother and I would go over there and we'd help Mike sell parts. He'd set up a big display, and he'd have engine parts, he'd have brakes, he'd have the wiring harness, an ignition switch, headlights, spotlights, a brake drum. I mean, all the parts you need to put together your old Indian motorcycle. So I don't work in the booth anymore, but periodically I'll go and just kind of bum around and see the old friends. So last week we ran over to Davenport. We got some cool clips for you, walking around. Here's what we got going on when you go to a swap meet. motorcycle I really don't associate getting shot at. Hiding behind this shield. $2,600 for this. So this went on an old military, like a 741 Indian, or I believe it's a WL Harley. Man, can you imagine that? These things are heavy. Hiding behind this and shooting back at people through this little window. Doesn't sound like much fun. $1,000, kinda runs. They sent to Washington, D.C. That place kinda runs too. We've got a couple of panhead dual glides. These are the bikes that Elvis used to ride. So if you see a picture of Elvis on a Harley Davidson, it's probably one of these. Confederate flags offend you, you definitely don't want to be coming to this place. It's pretty cool. And you got raise hail, praise Dale. Check this out. Curb feelers. Just like the ones I just bought for the Joe Dirt Superbird. Exact same thing.
Oh my gosh. That's not, how much is that?
600. Got a few of those at home. A couple of cool Indian cans, and we showed you swap meet. These things are going for crazy money. Back in the day when you could buy them for $100. Check that out, man. $4,500 sold. Vintage old squirt soda sign. Got an extra $60K laying around? This barn find could be yours.
I'm glad you got it out there.
So this would have been like the bike where you put that metal shield on that we just looked at a second ago. Right on the front of this. Little one for your buddy. He's in here shooting. You're riding and shooting. What could go wrong, huh? Cool thing about Davenport too is I'm guaranteed I'm running into Mike Wolfe of American Pickers.
Hey, how you doing, man? Good to see you in a while. You've been killing it, though. I've been following you online.
Thanks.
Yeah, you guys have been busy as hell.
Yeah.
You still here in Iowa?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm always coming back here. I come back like once a month. I still have my house here. Yeah, all my family's here and stuff. So
we bought a place out in South Dakota outside of Nemo, up in the hills. So my wife and I get out there about probably once a month. We get out there about a week, and then of course for the rally we're out there for a couple of weeks. So
yeah, these guys have been selling some great stuff. Matt bought the best piece. You know, you can eat everything. Awesome.
All right, it was good to see you.
Good to see you too, buddy.
Yep.
$800.
$800.
Sold
$2,200 for this original Indian sign. $500.
I'm gonna have to raise the handlebar. This side's higher than the other.
$1,300 for a full original pack of Harley Davidson engine oil. So stuff brings pretty good money. This is pretty much the same thing. It's in my garage that my brother got. We got it in '94.
Yeah.
So very similar to this. He wants $15K. Bought ours for $4,200. My brother's in high school. I gave him a loan, and well, I had to borrow some money, and then I loaned it to him. So it's cool that we've had these old Indians in the family for so long. Worked out perfect.
Familiar.
This worked perfect. I could show this one being similar to the one in the garage. It's $15K. So. Why don't you buy it for me?
He's a bowler.
Buy it for me, Papa.
Papa.
I'll buy it for you.
Number one son, like he does.
I'll buy you that.
You buy it for.
I'll buy that for you, and then you add me.
Buy it for Mikey. Mikey likey. You buy it for Mikey.
Put my name on that Indian title, and you got a deal.
Mikey likey.
Oh, what's going on?
You never know what you're gonna find. You got an old vintage Coke, an actual real refrigerator. You got old antique tricycles. There's signs here. There's motorcycles. There's three-wheeled motorcycles. There's clothes. There's parts for anything ever made. It's just unbelievable the stuff that people drag out here. No matter what you're looking for, hell, it could be a carburetor for a 72 CB, four cylinder, whatever it is. It's going to be here if you look hard enough. Cool thing about the Davenport swap meets, they got stuff for all ages. 265 pages. I just read it for the articles though, you know. March 1980. I've been 9 years old. Would have been especially as interested in reading about Terry Bradshaw when I was 9 years old. So this is the motorcycle I take on the Kyle Petty charity ride with my wife Kelly. I've been doing the Kyle Petty charity ride since 2002. I mean, back then, the only street bike I had was the Indian, and I had to go out and find a Road King, because I sure as hell wasn't going to ride that Indian from Sonoma, California, all the way to Victory Junction Gang Camp in Randleman, North Carolina. So the Kyle Petty ride is my favorite charity in the entire world. After doing this for 22 years, I just have such a strong passion for the Victory Junction Gang Camp that Kyle founded for his son Adam after he tragically died in an automobile racing accident. So the camp is a place where chronically ill children can go for free for an entire week. It is just a magical place. I get goosebumps just talking about it right now. I mean, these kids who have been struggling their whole life with whether it's cancer or Down syndrome or the burn victims. I mean, the list goes on and on. But these kids can go to this camp and they're surrounded by kids that have the exact same disability as they do. So they can meet friends and all of a sudden they're just a normal kid at camp, just like all the other children in America get to go and enjoy each summer. So not only is this a magical place for the kids to go, it's actually sometimes some of the first time that the parents of these children are actually able to go on their own vacation because they've been so tied up at home watching the children. They don't have a chance to go out and just do something as a couple. One of the cool things about this camp is that they will say, the kids come here crying because they don't want the parents to go. And then when the parents come back a week later, the kids are crying because they don't want to leave the camp. One of the coolest things I've ever had happen to me is when Kyle Petty called me last year wanting to know if we, Kelderman Manufacturing, would be willing to host lunch here for the 28th annual Kyle Petty charity ride. So of course I was not going to turn down this opportunity. So we rolled out the red carpet. Kelly and I got the ride up front. We pulled into the facility, and I mean, our crew here at Kelderman's, they did it up first class. We had killer food. We had the Garage Mahal on display. We had the shop opened up. It was just an awesome day, and I swear that 2 hours we were here, nothing has went by so fast in my entire life as that 2 hours. The newest addition to the motorcycle collection is this 2024 Harley Davidson Road Glide. This is going to be cool, and we're going to make a whole episode on the building of this bike. I'll just a couple teasers. It's got a paint job. It's going to match my most famous car, the Joe Dirt car. So we're going to call this the Dirt Bike, because what else are you going to call it? So this bike is getting torn down. The sheet metal is going to go to Scott Takes, same guy that's doing the deer tape bird. So yeah, my wife says, you got a little obsession with this Joe Dirt stuff. And I'm like, well, it is what it is. So the bike is going to go down to Paul at Bare Knuckle Performance, get completely stripped down. The motor's getting torn down, crank getting beefed up. We got a Assassin turbo that's going on this thing. We're going to be smoking tires like we did on the Superbird everywhere we go. Hopefully I can keep this license in my pocket. So we'll be selective where we choose to do these burnouts. We're getting Bare Knuckle Performance wheels and rotors, lots of carbon fiber, Trask aluminum swing arm, rear billet section, custom race suspension. We are building a muscle bike that's going to look like the Joe Dirt car. So back in high school, I had the pictures of these ATK motorcycles on my wall. And I think it was a 406. I have to look it up. But I think it's 406 two-stroke. That was just my dream bike. But back then, that was twice the money of a CR 125 or CR 250. And I couldn't afford those, let alone doubling up to get an ATK. The cool thing about these ATKs, they were made in Utah. And would you believe it, Horst, and I can't remember his last name, but he, the guy that invented the retractable step for amp research, the guy with the patents on that, that's the guy who used to own ATK motorcycles. What's cool about these, what made them so expensive, they were hand-built, White Brothers suspension, Renthal handlebars. I mean, everything on this bike, Rotax motor, I mean, it was the best that you could buy. So it was, basically a out-of-the-crate race box race bike with no limitations. So a couple years ago, I'm at Davenport hanging out with Kiwi, and here we go. I go walking down the aisle, and I find this old 350. Now, it wasn't my dream bike, but you know what? ATK was my dream bike. So it was cool. Not a lot of guys were looking at this bike, so I ended up, I think I got it for a steal. So this particular bike really wasn't the motocross bike like the 406. This was actually more the desert racing. Now, they had a bike bigger than this, a 560, some big monster, and these were just Baja bikes. But to get the small one, it's still awesome. I mean, the oil goes in the frame on these. The technology is just off the chart. They were kind of the first ones to do the monoshock. Just a cool piece that looks really awesome in this garage. So I really wouldn't call this, a true motorcycle, but man, what some killer yard art, man. I found this on Facebook about 5 years ago in Moravia, Iowa, which is about an hour away. And this guy told me he bought this farm back in like 1975, and this Indian was laying on its side in the fence row, and this tree grew up through it. It's got the handlebars right here. And I'm like, man, dude, you should have salvaged this thing. I mean, you're talking 40 years ago. I mean, this whole front end would have been good, but all it's good for now is what we're doing. So the frame is a 46 or 47. And what's crazy is this is a 1938 motor, and you can see where they've JB welded the cylinders, and you can see where this front end, the cylinder block. So back in the day, whoever was riding this was raising some serious hell, man. Since we got a lot of farm ground here, my dad's been buying up farms for a long time. We want to go right down on a Sunday afternoon. Not going to take the Harley Davidson. So we picked up this BMW adventure bike. Man, if you want to gravel travel, these things are a blast. 140 horsepower, about 550 pounds. It's just like a crotch rocket. So believe it or not, what I use this bike mostly for is I keep this in the race car trailer. So when we go racing in Florida, we leave the semi and the rig down there. What's cool is I can put this in front of the cars in the trailer, and when I need to fly out, when I go, I'll just ride it over to my sister's place in West Palm Beach, throw it in her garage, get an Uber to the airport, and the bike will sit there until I fly back down for the next race, then boom, we're off to Sebring. Hit the like button, subscribe button, tell your friends, tell your enemies, anybody who wants to hang out with the Kelderman crew. You can find us at Kelderman Trucks on Instagram. I'm at JDeerte on Instagram, and on YouTube, we're Kelderman Manufacturing. Same thing on Facebook.
And he's my hero. He's the Indian expert. Yeah.
I'm just staff.
Yeah.
Just my mentor.
Try to measure